like, what would you say to someone that is sitting there trying to get their business going, maybe doesn't want to have their wife involved or anybody else, just want to, is there, like, what do you do? Right. Because you're like, hey, the crown, you want to be on the top, it's nicer to wear it with two people, but like, is it something that you can like search out for? Like, what was your guys' like next big hire or somebody that you should strive to go, hey, you know what, if you are doing a business, maybe search for XYZ.
Yeah. Well, I do think partnerships are powerful. You look at, Steve Jobs and Wozniak, you look at, other great executives and entrepreneurs. And, there's the old quote, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I think there's a lot of truth to that. But to your point, you've got to have, the right partner. So there's another quote about partnerships I love is, I can do, great things. You can do great things. Together we can do great things. It's like the 1 + 1 = 3 mantra. And ideally you find somebody with a complementary skill set or a complementary approach, but you still need to have somebody who has a shared vision, a shared work ethic, and a shared set of values. Not easy to find. A lot of people will get into business with family or friends out of convenience. Or in some cases out of desperation, because, business is hard. They hope that, a partner is going to be a lifeline for them, but it should be viewed as a long-term, partnership. And, I think, just like selecting a life partner in marriage that you're going to build a family with, you got to be thinking about it for the same criteria. What are the value sets? What are the skill sets? And, can we communicate openly? Can we hold each other accountable and not take things personally? Can we appreciate what the other person brings to the table? So my and Omar's friendship and then ultimately our business partnership kind of happened organically. I think a lot of, young guys dream to be able to start a business with their best buddy from high school or college or what have you. We sort of are living that, but, I think, it's not like there's a matchmaking process for finding business partners or sign up sheet for, looking for business partners. So sometimes people will get into it out of convenience or like I said, desperation. And so you just got to be, cognizant of that. And, chopping up equity is not easy. And, being willing to, it's never, sometimes it skews one way or the other as far as what, the value people bring. So it's very hard to measure. And so you can't really be objective about that. You just got to be like, okay, we're going to lock in and we're going to commit to doing this together. And so, I think having an open mind and, open dialogue, diligence before, jumping in with a partnership. And I will share, when Omar and I were first, contemplating getting into business together, it was his mom's idea and his mom's beat up cargo van that gave us the initial sort of spark to get started. And it was Omar's business plan in college. And so to his credit, originally he was saying, okay, well, if you're going to come in and kind of help me, we'll do this sort of, divergent split, I'll be majority, you'll be minority. And I was like, look, man, no offense, we're coming out of college, but if we're going to do this, we got to be 50-50 partners and we got to roll up our sleeves and lock in together. If I'm going to give it my 110%, which, he knows me that I'm going to do. And he said, okay, to his credit as well. He didn't have to do that. So I think it's worked out for us, but we did have it. Just, reminded me of that conversation we had in the early days. And obviously it's, I'm sure we're both glad that we made that choice.
Yeah, I wonder if, and to have that type of conversation, I think sometimes can be tough too, right? You're like with your friend, this guy's got the plan and you come in there. To me, it makes sense. I can see it. But those conversations come up and let's say you only took the 30%, or 20%, would you have lasted in that partnership or done the commitment you would have if you both weren't just coming in and going, let's do 50-50. So,
and it could have backfired, right? I mean, he took a risk too. Like, he could have given 50%. I could have been a dog and, dragged my feet in the business. But, I'm not wired that way. He knew I was a workhorse and obsessive compulsive with how I approach things. And so, like I said, it's worked out well. But yeah, it's a risk in either direction, right?
When you look back at getting on Shark Tank, right? You guys were like one of the first guys on the season when it first started, right?
Episode 1, season 1. Yep.
How did that work? Like, and what made you guys want to apply? Like, was it just like an ego thing? You guys wanted to like kind of get on Shark Tank and see what happens and see if something was going to bite?
So, we didn't know what the show was. We didn't know who the sharks were because it was episode 1 season 1. So it was actually the pilot episode they were filming. And we saw an ad in Entrepreneur Magazine. Actually, one of our team members brought it to us, and it said, looking for entrepreneurs to pitch a business idea for a TV show pilot. It was very kind of esoteric like that. And we had just started franchising. We had like 5 or 6 locations. So we had already experienced some success with publicity and media relations. And so we were like, hey, this could be an opportunity to get some brand exposure, some national exposure. And we had this mental gymnastics where we're like, well, we aren't really trying to raise capital for College Hunks. So what do we actually pitch? And we had a joke, kind of playful idea for a sister concept. We were going to call it College Foxes Packing Boxes. And so we sent in the pitch tape because we knew it would be, visual, it would be kind of fun for television, but we'd be able to also talk about our College Hunks business as a reason why the Sharks should invest in this new sister concept. And it actually worked out exactly as we could have hoped, because the Sharks were like, well, we're not going to invest in something that doesn't exist. Give us equity in your College Hunks business, which is the offer that Robert Hirschi made. We ended up turning it down. And a lot of people will ask us, do you regret not taking the deal? Like I said, this show didn't exist before we went on it. So none of these Sharks were famous celebrities yet. Mark Cuban hadn't joined the show yet. O'Leary, Damon John, Herjavec, Barbara Corcoran, they were all kind of known entrepreneurs, but they weren't like mainstream, publicity celebrities. So, we didn't know that there'd be this halo effect 15 years down the road of having a partner as a Shark. And so we, graciously declined the offer, but it was a cool experience for 2 reasons. Obviously, one, to be able to say, hey, we were on the first episode. It's kind of a cool claim to fame when you do those icebreakers, something people may or may not know about you. But 2, it kind of gave us a little taste of pitching to investors or talking to a group of folks, that were further along in their business journey than we were. And it actually even put a little bit of a chip on our shoulder because, Mr. Wonderful called us greedy pigs. He told us we'd never be on his side of the table. And so even to this day, we kind of use that as a little bit of motivation and chip on our shoulder to, prove him wrong and any other doubter that's doubted us along the way.
So did you use that icebreaker when you met your wife?
No, actually.
I'm a franchise, but I was on Shark Tank.
So funny story is I had met her after we had filmed it, and then it aired several months later. And so I hadn't met her family yet. We were just in the early phases of dating, and she's at home, and I told her the premiere was coming on. So she's at home saying, hey, this is the guy I'm talking to, my new boyfriend. And her parents are like, this, yeah, right. Like, what is this company? What is this show? So it actually did play into our relationship in those early days.
Well, that's funny. Speaking on these shows, because like I said in the very beginning, you guys were on multiple shows after. How does that work? Like, I'll turn the mics off. Like, can you just tell me like the inside scoop on like how are you getting on all of these shows afterwards?
Yeah. Well, you got to think every show, whether it's a reality show or a scripted show or a media reporter, a journalist, they wake up every day thinking the exact same thing. We need a subject for our next episode or our next article, or in your case, my next podcast or what have you, right? So we always felt like we were helping these TV show outlets or these media reporters when we would reach out and sort of pitch them on a potential opportunity of having us on the show or writing a story about what we were doing. And then we also had our antennas up all the time. So, just like we saw that ad in Entrepreneur Magazine for the Shark Tank pilot, somebody reached out to me on LinkedIn about a HGTV opportunity. And I was like, okay, let me see what this is about. And we had just bought our house and it was for a House Hunters show. And I was like, oh, well, unfortunately, we just bought our house. And they're like, oh, well, spoiler alert, that's how, the show works. You got one picked out. We show you 2 decoys and then you make your decision. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. So we did House Hunters. We ended up doing some other shows as well. And so I think, the Undercover Boss is actually one that I'm most proud of because we followed up multiple times over a decade. The show came out like 10 years ago. When I saw it, I was like, oh, that'd be a really fun show to go on because we could go undercover. We could go into some of our franchises and see some stuff that's going on. And I think I counted, we got declined or denied that rejected from the show, I should say, at least 7 times over the subsequent 10 years. And I would follow up once a quarter to the producer whose contact information I said, hey, any news for the upcoming season? And he's like, oh, sorry, the series got canceled. And then I'd follow up again, hey, is it getting picked up? Oh, actually, we changed to Celebrity Undercover Boss. And of course, we're not real celebrities. So, it's like, sorry, maybe next time. And then they switched back to the traditional format and we were like selected and then we got cut. And so persistence matters as well. If there's something that you're trying to do, and even, whether it's media coverage, some people would call us, publicity chasers or shameless promoters. But, if you're not going to, I was going to say, if you're not going to promote yourself, who will, right? And especially when you've got a consumer brand, you want to be out there beating the street and leveraging mainstream or nowadays social media to try to get the word out.
Hey everyone, it's Matt from MovingLetters.ai. I'm super excited to announce our newest product, The Simple Note. The Simple Note is an extremely simple, handwritten product to get you into more homes at an affordable rate. Right now, you can get 500 of these to targeted, newly listed homes for only $8.95. Guys, check out the link down below. Sign up today and join the handwritten revolution. Let's go.
That was always one of the catalysts why I started the podcast, was to have, moving company owners that might not be that well known or that are well known, where I can at least try and promote their business, shoot up some reels, get them some type of exposure that they wouldn't have like anywhere else without paying, thousands of dollars to do it. And it's, to now touch on the Undercover Boss, which I really love that episode. And it's going to lead me into talking a bit more about what you guys do as an organization. You really touched on a lot of people's hearts, and the employees and everything else. When you and Omar were going through this, was there parts of it where you're like, wow, I had no idea so-and-so was actually doing this in the company? Was it a lot of pre-arranged, pre-production where people on your team said, oh, like, I don't remember everybody's names, but like Mrs. Jones actually is like really, really good. You should really focus on her. Like, how did that process work?
Yeah. So no real spoilers there, to be honest with you. It was a pretty organic process. The production team, because they had been doing it so long, were really good at sort of casting and surveying all of our franchise owners to identify interesting and moving stories out in the field of team members that were perhaps, having some personal challenges or who had overcome obstacles, because that's really what they want to spotlight for the TV story,
Sure.
part. And so when we got into it, we had no idea where we were going, who we were going to be working with. We had never met these people. They had never met us. I think for the most part, the disguises worked, although Omar got recognized by one of our franchise owners who he went undercover with. And it did. It really tugged on the heartstrings of my compassion and empathy buttons. I cried on national television. Not ashamed to say that as we were giving the awards out. But these were just, it was powerful experience for me, because to see people, especially on the front lines of an organization that we've helped create, put in so much energy and effort and passion into what they do, while also having real human struggles, whether it's personal or financial, that they're dealing with, that, sometimes when you become disconnected from the front line further and further as the business grows, you forget, what some of the things that people are facing entail. And so for me, it was a really powerful eye opener, a reminder to not get disconnected from the front lines, to walk the shop floor, as they call it, and to, ask people questions, not just, how can we do better as a brand, or what else can we do to, make the job easier, but kind of how are they doing from a personal standpoint? What are they faced with, and what are they dealing with? And so, I think it really, as the show intends to do, brings the humanity into business. And, I was really grateful that we did that project.
Now, you also started an organization, I believe, called Move the World. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
So what we've done is we created a company purpose that we call Move the World. And the idea is, our higher purpose as an organization. Of course, we've got the literal concept of moving people's stuff anywhere, anytime, but we want to move people emotionally. And the idea is, one, magic or kind act for another human being can light another match, that can light another match, that can light another, that just creates this ripple effect that can lead to a powerful movement. Just like Omar's mom, lit the match for us when she offered us to use the cargo van and gave us the encouragement to, try this catchy name out. Same way you talked about earlier, the mover getting on his hands and knees and letting the elderly woman sit on his back while the elevator was being worked on. So we try to just, highlight and spotlight these move the world examples on a daily basis. But we've also created a more formal social partnership approach to how we do business. So we created a 2-for-1 giving platform, kind of like the Tom Shoes or the Bomba socks that do the 1-for-1. So for every move or haul that we complete, we donate 2 meals to an organization called U.S. Hunger. Really proud to report we just surpassed the 5 million meal mark since we launched that program, which is truly incredible. Something that I think our franchise owners and team members and clients are very proud and passionate about because hunger insecurity is still very real in our communities. A lot of our frontline team members can share stories about, growing up and, the food deserts and summer vacations where they weren't getting school lunch and some of the challenges that they would go through. And so us trying to, at least be some part of that solution has been meaningful for us. And then during COVID, we actually kept hearing these reports in the media about the uptick in domestic violence because people were stuck in, their quarantine with their abuser, unfortunately. So we had seen other moving companies kind of on the local level offer free moves for survivors of domestic violence. So we kind of raised our hand and said, hey, we want to do that on a national scale. We still do that during the month of October for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And then we are also partnered with a lot of nonprofits for donating the reusable items that we're hauling away through to Goodwill, Habitat for Humanity, and Salvation Army. So those are the things for me as a founder, where we get, I think can stay tapped in emotionally and driven emotionally, where it is truly about making an impact. I know it sounds, cliche to hear. And when things are challenging, it can be difficult to hone in on that. But we also say, look, with no margin, there's no mission. So that's why, it's upon us to be fiduciarily responsible about how we grow our business so that we can invest in programs, like the ones that I just mentioned.
Yeah, we had a guest speaker for a company called Shelter Movers out in Canada who has like 10 locations across Canada where they help domestic violence. And my company has partnered up with them as well, too. And the stories that they tell and share, it's remarkable. And I can only imagine, I didn't even really fathom during COVID in the lockdowns of the amount of domestic violence that was going on by people. So, I don't find giving back to tell people, well, I really don't want to, the people that help on the community, it's like giving themselves a chip on the shoulder. It's like free publicity and everything else. Just like you said, I mean, to me, if you want to be successful, it's also remembering who you are and giving back as well too to your community. I mean, what better way when you have the opportunity, you have the trucks and you have the resources and the guys, where we get bountiful supplies, furniture being donated to us, or people are just like, can you just bring this to the junk? And it's like a really nice bed. The mattress is not dirty yet. The couch is still good. A table. Sometimes it's like a TV, and you can at least donate that to a family that is in need, or helping out with food and everything else. I think it's so important.
Well, look, I mean, as business owners, we have, I would say, an obligation, but at least an opportunity to make an impact, not just through the employees that we provide, opportunity to, or the community that we service with, our solutions that we offer, but also through the give back programs. And business owners or capitalism, whatever you want to call it, can get a very bad rap. But I think that's why it's upon us. It's maybe not a perfect system, but is, in my view, the only system that can, function in modern society. And so, we've got to take care of the community that's taking care of us. And, there are people that are having challenges and struggles, and we may not be able to, solve world hunger ourselves, but we can make an imprint on it. And same thing with domestic violence. We're not going to eradicate the abusers out there, but we can be a channel or an outlet for people to try to get out of those abusive situations. And so I do think the obligation and the onus is upon us to do that. And, quite frankly, as an entrepreneur, it keeps you getting out of bed in the morning. Because if your sole focus is on, ringing the next, bell of revenue threshold or milestone, when things get challenging, you're going to be very quick to get sort of demotivated or disillusioned. But having a larger purpose or a larger vision combined with your organization will allow you to keep marching forward, because there's more to it than just making money.
For the smaller moving companies that are out there that maybe are near your guys' locations, is there a way for them to be part of your Move the World, or like your type of assistance or helping when you guys are putting something together? Or would you suggest them to like look in their local markets? Is there something that you guys are doing maybe to like outreach more, to involve more moving companies?
I mean, certainly I would encourage to follow suit and get involved, whether it be locally with a local shelter or local nonprofit, or there's a national program that we've done some work with. We already had the U.S. Hunger Partnership when we started the 2-for-1 program, but I'm aware you may also be of Move for Hunger, which is a really great program and one that I'm a big believer in with Adam and what he's doing there, and that's open to any and all moving companies to tap into and plug into. And so I think that, just do something and you got to be, again, mindful, no margin, no mission. You can't donate yourself out of business. We're not nonprofits. So we're not, you do have to draw the line at some point or say no at some point, but at least, understand the impact that you can have, even if it's your own internal constituents, creating a great, vibrant, environment for your team members to work and create an income for themselves, leveling up the quality of service that you deliver for your clients. And then, hopefully you'll grow and be able to do more, impact initiatives for the community as well.
MoverMarketing.ai is changing the game for moving companies with their innovative digital marketing solutions. I've been working with them on my SEO and website, and the results are incredible. My online presence has improved, making my site both visually appealing and highly visible to potential customers. But that's not all they do. MoverMarketing.ai offers a full range of services, from engaging social media management to robust branding, advertising, and public relations. They help you build a strong, trustworthy brand. If you're ready to elevate your moving business, I highly recommend MoverMarketing.ai. They've been a game changer for me, and they can be for you too. Thanks to MoverMarketing.ai for sponsoring this episode and for their support.
Now, I'm noticing for anybody that's watching the video, there's a real shameless plug of a random book behind Nick for his book, The Effortless Entrepreneur. Is that the book hiding in the back there?
Yeah.
On the corner? Look at that. Oh, there's the book.
It's not meant to be a shameless plug, but I'll shamelessly plug it anyway. So funny story about this book. We wrote it almost a little over 10 years ago, actually. And we were at an entrepreneurship conference, and the speaker says, anybody who's ever written a book always says they wish they wrote it 10 years ago. So go start writing, which I guess is kind of ironic because here we are 10 years later, and I'm so glad I wrote it 10 years ago and don't have to write it now. But we went to the bar after that speaker, and we said, well, I guess we got to write a book. What should we write about? And we said, what is it that we wish we knew in high school and college and a few years into our entrepreneurial journey? What is it we wish we knew then that we know now that we would love to share with others that are in this entrepreneurial journey themselves? And so we kind of pulled from different books that we had read, different speakers and mentors we had interacted with. And I would say we were single at the time, and we wrote it with a little bit of a bachelor edge. I think we were trying to become like the next Tim Ferriss, 4-hour work week. Yeah. So unfortunately, that didn't pan out, the way we envisioned. But I reread it recently, and I would say, 90% of it's still timelessly relevant. I would probably tone down some of the bravado that we put in there, but that's just kind of my life stage where I am now. But still relevant. And of course, we know nothing is effortless about entrepreneurship, but the idea behind that name is if you're doing something that you're enjoying and that you're passionate about, you look at there's a lot of heavy lifting and hard work that goes into it, but to the outside viewer, it can appear effortless. And you think about the best athletes or artists, a lot goes into their craft, but when they're out performing or out playing on the field, some of what they're doing just looks like it's effortless to the outside perspective. And so that's kind of what we wanted to paint from an entrepreneurship perspective is like, man, this is hard work. It takes a lot of grit, resilience, determination. But if you enjoy that process and that journey, it's going to, and sometimes feel effortless, or at least in other times, at least appear effortless. So that was the idea behind that book. And we actually, I think the first chapter is our Shark Tank story. So we tell that piece in there as well.
one of the things, because as we're talking about the book, that I do love, and I want to start this at my office, is you guys actually have a library that is open to everybody, the leadership teams, like anybody in your office that wants to take charge on like any books that you guys are reading. I bet you there's probably about a dozen of the Effortless Entrepreneur probably book in that library available for everybody. But I think that's so cool to have a library available for. What made you guys want to do that?
Growing up, I was not actually a big reader. I was not a great student. Omar and I, neither of us were great students. And it wasn't until we sort of stumbled on this entrepreneurial journey did we both become pretty passionate about learning, because it felt like everything we read was written about what we were going through or some things that we could apply to what we were dealing with. And so we started becoming kind of sponges as it related to self-improvement, leadership, development. I have a bad habit of reading a book and then dumping a whole bunch of ideas on my team. So I have had to temper that a little bit, because, all of a sudden people get this long email with all these bullet points or, scanned pages from a book. I'll be like, we need to be doing this and this and this. And so I've had to temper that a little bit. But, look, I think learning and leadership go hand in hand. I don't think we ever stop learning, especially if we want to continue to elevate ourselves and maximize our core potential. And so, there's been significant books that have made massive impacts, or there's been, books that have made massive impacts for our business and for me personally, and so I want to make sure we share that opportunity with the folks in our organization. And, of course, if they read it and they get something from it, hopefully it'll help them personally, but it also help their value to the organization as well. So it's a win-win.
3 final questions before we end off. 1, when you started doing well, you and Omar, what was the first big purchase that you made?
Oof. I can tell you Omar's first big purchase, because he and I were still on the trucks, and he was coming back from a long day of heavy lifting and sweaty, and he walked right into the Range Rover dealership and pointed at the one right on the display floor and said, "I want that one." And the guy looked him up and down like he was crazy, like, you're not buying that car. And sure enough, he was buying that car. I think the one that I can probably remember is not unlike that. We were moving to Florida. We were moving our call center from DC to Tampa, and I blame Omar for this one too. But he came down a little bit ahead of me, and he was texting me that now that we're going to be living in Florida, we need to buy a boat. And, I was like, well, maybe we should do a little research or buy one used. And he at the time was walking the Tampa Boat Show floor in the convention center and, getting ready to sign a lease in the name of the business, and, called me to confirm that it was a go. And so, I said, you know what? We're making some money. They say the best day and the worst day of a boat owner's life is the day he buys and the day he sells it. So that was a good day. And the day we got rid of it, that was a good day also.
Right.
So,
that's funny.
Yeah.
Final question. At what revenue, what size did you know that like you made it? Like that you were, okay, a 2-part question. Sorry. Part A, at what size did you know, hey, boom, okay, we got to scale this and let's go. Like, when it's like, okay, I got 5, I got 10 franchises, everything else, it's like, it's go time. We're scaling it, especially when you think of the moving. So I want to almost like fast forward to like just past like 2008.
Yeah.
Like we are going gangbusters and we have something that we need to run with. And at what revenue did you feel like, okay, like my life is pretty comfortable. I can almost like take a step back. Not that you do or you want to, but that you're like, I'm okay. Like I'm feeling pretty good, business-wise and life-wise.
Yeah, so I'll give it sort of a 3-part answer to that question. So the first sort of like wow moment for me was when we surpassed 1 million in annual sales, just in general, because I had always heard about this group called the Entrepreneurs Organization, EO. You had to have over 1 million in revenue to be able to join. It seemed like this unattainable number when we were starting out, and we got there pretty quickly. So when I joined that and started being surrounded by all these other like-minded entrepreneurs that were growth-driven, I was like, wow, this is an incredible group to be a part of. The second was our probably second or third franchise conference when we started to see our franchisees really like making real money, where it was no longer just an idea that we hoped would work, but it was actually starting to work. And we had a large group and big keynote speakers, and it was like, man, this thing is outgrowing us. And then the third piece, not where I would say I certainly can't become complacent, because I think complacency leads to bad outcomes or bad decisions, which lead to bad outcomes, but when we hit 100 million in our system-wide revenue, that was always like this, like pie in the sky, never going to happen. Like, if we could only get to that level, can you imagine? And when we got to that level, it was like, holy crap, we did it. And then we took a breath for about 3 or 4 minutes and said, okay, now let's keep climbing.
Now let's do 200 million, and 300 million. Is the reality of when people look at it going like, oh man, like Nick, this guy's doing well, his business is super successful, I could never dream of being someone like him. The reality is the perspective is exactly the same, whether you're making 300 million or you're making 300,000. Like, it's the bills are the same, the numbers are generally the same. You're just working with like large equity. It's like there's no big sunshine, rainbows and unicorns at that level, as opposed to that. Like, it really comes down to the hard numbers at the end of the day. Like, what is it, for people to like mentally digest in their head? Like, if Nick was standing in front of you going like, guys, like, you just need to pay attention here. Okay. Like, it doesn't change.
Yeah, no, I think I can agree with that as well. I mean, you hear the old adage, more money, more problems. And, you start making more money, you start owning more things. And sometimes the things you own start to own you, whether it's the boat or the vacation home, or, you fill it in like, to somebody who doesn't have it. Like, I used to not have, I would just aspire to have. And then you start getting, and you're like, holy shit, I got to deal with this maintenance. And I got to, and like, okay, people that don't have it are gonna be like, oh, big deal, buddy. Sorry for your tough luck there that you got to deal with it. So, but the reality is, like, there's always going to be somebody with a bigger boat, or there's going to be somebody with a plane or a bigger plane. And so if you get caught up in this treadmill of trying to keep up or have more or do more, and you think that, that's going to make you happy or make you fulfilled, you're in for just a long run to nowhere. You're basically might as well run in place. And so I think that's why it's so critical to have a level of fulfillment, presence, mindfulness of what it is that you're trying to build. And so in that regard, you can, appreciate the journey along the way and embrace the chaos and say, okay, for me, it's not about trying to be $1 billion brand, although that sounds like exciting and vanity number. For me, it's like, okay, how can I maximize my potential as a human being, as a leader on earth? And then as part of that, how can I help maximize other people's potential? And oh, by the way, we've got this platform, this brand. What can we do to maximize the potential of what this brand is capable of? And when we start thinking about, potential, maximization or self-actualization, that gets me excited and continues to be motivated. And I find fulfillment from that, because then, it's not about just trying to check another revenue box or try to buy another toy or take another, vacation that can be, short-lived fulfillment. It's actually, I think, sustained fulfillment of getting better every day and seeing the progress and, the fruits of those labors. So it took me a while to figure that out, to kind of shift from this scarcity mindset to this abundance mindset. And obviously it's easier when you start having more to, finally make that switch. But I did get caught up in it at one point, because once I left EO, I joined YPO, Young Presidents Organization. And you've got to have, 13 million in sales to join there, and over 50 employees. And there's, billionaires all of a sudden in the room. And, I'm feeling, somewhat imposter syndrome around some of those guys. And so I think, like to your point, no matter what level you're on, you're going to have some of those feelings of, insecurity or challenges or struggles. And you just kind of have to keep sort of expanding your capacity of what you're capable of dealing with.
Whew. That was intense. I'm only just thinking about it. I mean, and I feel like I'm going to need like a part 3 and a part 4 with you back on here, just to hear some of the stories of some of the guys you probably rolled with and hung out with at some of these young presidents groups and the EO groups and everything else. So much more to unpack with Nick, but time is limited today. So we're going to wrap this up. Nick, thank you so much for coming on this podcast. I think it was an absolute pleasure, and I appreciate it. I sure hope everybody wrote down and got all the nuggets down from start to finish, and it's been a pleasure.
Awesome.
Nick,
Mark, appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
I'm Mark Hirschi with Salmon's Moving and Storage. Today, I want to talk about tying up training. Why? Because this is Netflix grade quality training. It's not those old videos and VHSs that you got hiding in your office somewhere. It's online, it's easy to use, they're short videos, but they get to the point.
My new employees, these guys run through these training programs. There's tests at the end, and they're coming out going, oh, I'm ready to rock. So if you haven't checked out Tighten Up Training yet, get a demo done. Get on board. Guess what else is there? Online portals for my sales staff. Can you believe it? These guys can learn how to overcome objections and book more leads today. So what are you waiting for? Go check out Tighten Up Training today.